Welcome to Personal Mastery Training. I'm your host, Alvin Brown, former world class athlete turned entrepreneur and consultant. Join us as we learn from guests who have conquered their inner battles and share their journeys to success. Get ready for inspirational masterclasses and thought provoking strategy sessions to fuel your path to personal mastery. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Personal Mastery Training. Happy New Year. It's 2025. I am sending you blessings. I'm sending you love. I'm sending you peace, love, soul for an amazing, prosperous, healthy 2025. Go do your thing like a chicken wing, man. Anyway, so here's the deal. This is a special episode. My fellas, I've been unable to get to this recording. So my fellas have picked me up. And this episode is called Knowing Thyself to Achieve True Mastery. I think you're going to love it. They always do a great job. So let me jump right to the episode. And again, I'm wishing you peace, love, and soul. All right, let's go.
Well, welcome to Personal Mastery and the Personal Mastery Alliance. And so today we've got a great topic on the subject, and it's about understanding yourself. That's a big part of personal mastery. However, specifically, where your expertise ends, right? What your limitations are, and where you need to gain knowledge or call in other experts to help you or to offer their input, their advice, their unique perspective, because maybe within your current state, you have some blind spots. However, you're not aware of your blind spots. And so it's really important that we become aware of it, and then we can do something about it, and improve situations. And so with that, we'll get rolling. So, Ray, you had such a great idea today, and I'm excited to dive into this morning. So I'll pass the mic.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Charlie. And you pretty much summed it up. And it's fact. We don't know what we don't know. Okay. We don't know what we don't know. Personal mastery is multi-dimensional. Okay. Multi-dimensional in wherever you're at in your journey. Okay. Whether you feel like you're very advanced or not advanced, it doesn't really matter. Do you make the best use of all the parts that you have available for you? Okay. Now, you could be very advanced, read a lot of books, know a lot of things, but if you don't make the best use of these things, you don't have personal mastery either. Okay. So there's this element of awareness, execution, and truly totally owning every skill set, every experience, every action that you do on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so this sums up what personal mastery is about. The problem, as Charlie says, is that in certain situation, okay, we're not aware and equipped to deal with certain situations simply because we use what we know. Okay, we use only what we know, but only what we know has a limit. Sometimes what we know does not apply to certain situations, and just trying to force the issue really makes things even that much more difficult. So part of personal mastery also is understanding where you need to expand, where you need to seek external help, where you need to add new tools to your toolbox ultimately. Because as you can tell, you look at certain people and they're in a situation and you see exactly what's going on, but they cannot see what's going on. Okay, it's all around them. They cannot see it because they're simply not aware of what they do themselves. Okay, so that's another very important part of personal mastery I'm excited to dive into is understanding where is my limit. Okay, and I gave a great example pre-show, but I say, okay, if you have a company, if you're a leader and you want to grow in your leadership, okay, in your leadership in general, but you don't have enough experience doing that, you have things, let's say, on the personal end that hinder you from creating the culture that you truly want to have, and you keep operating in that way, where there's simply a ceiling to where you can go. Not everything's gonna happen, and ultimately you need to bring external people. Good example, Dr. Charlie Cartwright, okay, to come in and help you expand on that, create the right systems. I love that word, right? Systems, give you the additional resources, knowledge, so that you can yourself become a new person. Okay, a new person, an expanded version that has more tools to work with in your entire toolbox. And ultimately, you want to refine these tools so that you can be a master of all these tools. Awesome. Okay, so with that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, I love it. And just listening to everything you had to say, one of the big things, one of my friends, he'll say this often. Um, he'll say you can't teach someone something they think they already know, right? And so we've got to be open to the possibility that we don't know what we don't know. And someone may have a piece of information, a piece of knowledge that will take us to the next level in our professional career or maybe our personal relationships. And it's fascinating. So I think personally for me, what I remember is being painfully shy in high school and in undergrad, right? Painfully shy. And that wasn't just it wasn't just my personal life, it was professional too. So I just painfully shy. And so I wouldn't speak unless spoken to, and a lot of social anxiety. I think they would term that today. But back then, I don't know that there was a term for it. So, but now I'm a professional speaker, right? Well, what happened? What happened? Well, I had information and knowledge given to me. And so I remember, and I don't remember the day, but I remember about the day that there was a businessman in Lincoln, Nebraska, and he took me to lunch because I was like walking with my head down. I was in sales or for UPS at the time. But I had driven that truck for 4 years, delivering packages, and I was tired of that and dealing with the winters and the hot summers and all that. And I was like, man, I'm gonna take a shot at this sales job. But then I was painfully shy. So this guy was talking to me about this, and there's a man in the restaurant literally walking down the aisle. And he stops him and introduces him to me and says, "Hey, do you have a tape? Oh, you got a tape?" And I was like, what is he talking about? Tape. Of course, that's before CDs and all the things we have now. So, when you listen to music at that time, it was a cassette tape and you had a cassette deck in your car. So this guy gives me a cassette tape, pulls it out of it. He had a suit on, suit and tie on him. Out of his suit jacket, he pulls this tape, or would be a CD today, but he pulls this cassette tape out, and it was Zig Ziglar, right? And it was called See You at the Top. And I never heard of Zig Ziglar. I never heard of positive mental attitude. I never heard of people don't care how much you know to that know how much you care. I never heard these terms. It wasn't a part of my world. It wasn't a part of my upbringing. Never heard of it. Never been exposed to it. And it changed my life. It opened up a whole new world. And then from Zig Ziglar, went to Tony Robbins and Og Mandino and Napoleon Hill and just on, right? But I had this blind spot. I'm thinking that, man, there's something wrong with me. I don't, I'm afraid to talk to people. I'm nervous around people, all these things. But I just needed someone that had expertise beyond mine to show me what was possible, to show me what was out there. And then I could run with that. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, that's awesome. The Go back to the archives, the Zig Ziglars and everything. Nice, nice. Actually, I remember a few years back. I was just in the summer. Well, a few years back, many years back. Um, it was the summer. I was just looking for time, find a job, and I work in this warehouse. And I remember that's when my mind totally opened up that summer. I had Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Brian Tracy presentations I just downloaded, into my phone and on my earphones all day, just listening and having this information pour into my brain. And that was a very powerful summer for me. I want to talk about a concept when it comes to this. Okay, I call it the triple A. Okay, the triple A. Triple A for me starts with what I call assessment. After that, it's alignment, and after that, it's action. So assessment, alignment, action. Let's start with this. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Okay. Good example. As I was listening to Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, I couldn't talk back. Okay. I couldn't talk back. 2 ears to really listen. Okay. Listen and assess the information that was given to me. Did it make sense? Did it not make sense? Okay. Did I listen to it with an open mind, or was I rigid? Okay. Was I not in the spirit of simply looking to learn first and foremost? Looking to learn. So assessing, in my opinion, starts with that. Are you open to learn information that you maybe previously have never been exposed to? As Charlie said, it's impossible to teach to someone who doesn't think they need to learn anything. Okay. So for all of us, every day of our life, I think a very important skill is to be a learner. That's why it is proven that people were happy, people were highly successful. And I'm not just talking about financially, I'm talking in every aspect of their life. A lot of chances when you go to their home, you will find books. Okay. You'll find a lot of these different things because they're always curious about learning. Okay. So that's a big part of assessment. From learning, when you dive into that long enough, okay, it goes to the second level, which I believe is understanding. So there's one thing to just put myself in front of the information, listen to it, but it's another thing to start understanding it. Okay, when you really understand what's being told to you, what you're learning, you open up a new world. You start to connect the dots. You start to really connect different concepts and understand different concepts. That's very important in business relationship or any relationship. It's first to be able to understand what's being at stake, understand the other person also. Okay, so that's my assessment part at first. Okay, so whenever I'm in this situation, whenever there's a limit to what I think, okay, am I open to learn? And am I starting to really understand the information being poured to me? Okay. Once I go from that, if it makes sense, okay, if it makes sense to me, if it connects the right dot, then it's important to start internalizing it. Okay, internalizing it, making it a part of your system, your software, as we say, right? We all have computers. We do this on computers right now. Okay. Well, I can continually update my computer. So today, my computer is not the same as to when I first got it. Same thing for us. Human beings were the ultimate adaptation machine, but we are, if it matters to us, if we're open to be. If we're not, we can also regress fairly quickly back into caveman. We see examples of that every single every single day also. Okay, so when you internalize, that's when you really start to align, and then you're ready to take action, with new parts to the original version of yourself. Okay, so that's the assessment, the alignment, and the action part. Okay, I'll give you guys great examples of that and why it's so important. And I say it very often, and I say it to also remind myself of it. Human nature wants us to do it the other way around. They want us to take action first, okay? They want us to take action without thinking, and then from there, we try to really understand what was going on without having the right perspective. And then we don't understand anything, but then we look at specific information and figure out that, oh, this is why this happened, or this is what they meant when they said that, and blah blah blah, right? And we can all tell this makes no sense. So, good example, I was watching this video on YouTube yesterday, and some guys were bow hunting in Kodiak Island for grizzly bears. These are some of the biggest grizzly bears on planet Earth, guys. Okay, so they were very prepared. They were trained. They you could tell they had a deep understanding of grizzlies, first and foremost. They don't go out there without understanding what to do when you see a grizzly, because trust me, when you see an animal that large, okay, come close to you, full tilt, and you have to have your bow and remain completely still. Still, you have to let them get close enough, right? Because our human nature is about running away. What do they tell you to not do? Run away. Because when you do, it triggers the primal part of the grizzly even more. You become prey 100%, you're finished, right? So imagine having an animal probably like 6, 7, 800 pounds, full ball of muscle running full tilt at you, and you have to stay there and not move until they get close enough. And understanding this is my only shot. And you know what? It's amazing to see, because the guy just stays there, shoots his bow, the bear runs away, and ultimately the bear goes down, right? So just that one example showed me so much about the things that we can learn in our whole lives. Okay, he got to that point where he can be extremely confident, where I guarantee you, there was a limit to his knowledge at some point, where he had to go seek the information, where he had to internalize the information, accept it, understand it, learn it, and then he became that person that's prepared, that's ready to go bow hunting grizzlies on Kodiak Island. This does not happen in one day. This happens with a level of awareness, of humility, okay, proactiveness, of mastery, really, of mastery. And it's a great example to show us everything that we can become when we respect these concepts and we are aware enough of them. This is why we show up every single week, because we understand this blade needs to be sharpened. This blade continually needs to be sharpened, and new information comes into the software every week, and we're open enough to really take it all in, ponder on it, let it challenge what we believe, and then be able to assess if what we believe is right or wrong. That's a very important part of the puzzle. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
And that is fascinating, that example of those people hunting those grizzly bears. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say Kodiak Island is the largest population of grizzly bears in the world. So not
Yeah.
only are you someplace where there are grizzlies, but this is the largest population of grizzly bears. So yeah, you'd have to have your head screwed on really, really, really tight there to
Yeah.
know what you're doing. And there's people that have, got to that level, obviously, which is pretty astounding. One of the things that I was thinking about in all this too, as you were speaking, was the need for humility. If we're really going to master ourselves, and specifically, if we've been doing things a certain way, well, we're expert at doing things that way. And so if we're going to make a change, then we're not no longer going to be an expert, right? We're going to have to go back to being a novice for a little while, but we need to master this skill or master this tool to move us forward. And I don't know where I got into my head when I was younger and that flowed into adulthood. But if I started doing something and I failed at it, I thought that was a bad thing, and that showed that, hey, you're on the wrong track, you're on the wrong road, you shouldn't be doing that because look, you're failing. And that's just simply not true. And failure is not the opposite of success, but it's actually a part of success. And I remember years ago when the U.S. women's national team, the soccer team, really kind of came on the world scene and were playing well and winning medals and tournaments and all these things. And I started paying attention to the soccer team, and I didn't know much about soccer at all. And I want to say late '90s, early 2000s. I remember watching the Olympics, and they said, okay, we were playing Brazil. And I
Mm,
remember they had the number one women's greatest soccer player in the world plays for Brazil. Her name was Marta. And I think she recently retired. But anyway, so I'm like, oh, this woman's the best in the world. So I'm watching, and if you watch the soccer match, there will be plays. If you just watch that one play, you think, oh, she can't play. Right? She tried to kick the ball, she missed it, she fell down. What? This is the best player in the world? 5 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, that was amazing. No one else could have made that play. And so, even the best player in the world, there'll be certain times, certain situations, it appears they can't play, right? Because they made it, they're human. But overwhelmingly, right, that consistency in her class just showed up, and she was the best in the world for years. And so we've got to be willing to have the humility to know that, hey, when we're going to acquire a new a new tool and put that in our box, it's going to take us a while before we're expert at using that tool, right?
mm,
And and again, it's so important to realize that we always have a lot to learn. Not just when you're young. You always have a lot to learn because there's so much to learn. And it reminded me of this Eric Hoffer quote. He said, "In times of change, learners inherit the earth,
mm.
while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists." Right? So, because they think they know, and they don't know, and it's just detrimental. So, to your point, Ray, always be learning, always be sharpening that axe, always be sharpening your tools, refining the way you utilize those tools. And when we do those things, we're going to achieve better outcomes. We're going to achieve higher levels of success. It's inevitable if we're consistent about doing those things. And so with
Mm.
that, I'll pass the mic.
I love that wisdom. Who said it again? In times of change, learners inherit the earth.
Yeah, Eric Hoffer,
Okay.
Hoffer. Yeah.
In times of change, learners inherit the earth. Love it. And Charlie, tell me, when is it not a time of change? Okay. When is it not?
It's so true. I mean, anyone that's raised children knows this, right? You're so happy to get them out of diapers, because that's your biggest challenge. And oh, they're walking around. Oh, you're so happy that they're walking. Wait a minute. Oh, now they're harder to deal with, because they're
Yeah.
mobile, and then so you're dealing with that. And whoa. And I remember, and people out there that have had children that are grown will really laugh. Anytime I tell this story, will really laugh. I thought it was going to be easier when my kids became teenagers.
Hmm.
I actually thought that, like, oh man, they'll be self-sufficient,
Hmm.
we'll be able to leave them at home by themselves. It's going to be awesome. And change, right? Challenges, they didn't get smaller. They multiplied. There's change.
Yeah.
And then when your children become adult, there's change.
Hmm.
And it's constant. And then not only are they changing, you're changing,
Yeah.
right? So it's so interesting that,
Yeah.
and I had this mentality until I heard someone explain it, that, hey, you can have four kids under one roof, they're all different ages, but they all turn out so differently. Well, they have different personalities, but I parented them the same way.
Yeah.
And this gentleman, and it wasn't talking to me specifically, but it was asked this on a podcast, and he pointed out that all four of those children had a very different experience, right? Because, if it was your first child, it was your first child. There's all these things you didn't know. And where were you at personally and professionally with that first child? Now you got a second child. Okay, so now you're managing two. You've not managed two before, and the child's different, and you're different. And so each child experience a different version of mom and dad, who's ever in their life. They experience a different version, and then add to that the dynamics of their siblings. So if you had four children in the home, you had four very different experiences. Even if you try to do everything exactly the same, it didn't happen. And
Yeah.
so they had four very different experiences. And so I was like, wow, it makes a lot of sense.
It
Total sense.
does. It does. It really does make a lot of sense. And I had a conversation with a mother recently, and I'm sure in some shape or form, many listeners may have felt this way. So for whoever ever felt this way, this is for you, right? So she felt she felt bad. She opened up to me and she felt bad because she was like, my son is acting in a certain way, but when he was a child, I was this way with him, so I feel responsible, as to where I was at that moment in my life. And I'm not that anymore. I've evolved, but now I see the way, now that he's grown up, how he's asking, and I kind of feel responsible for it. And what I told her is that she took ownership from it a long time ago. She continually evolved from it a long time ago. But the reality is, I'm not bringing down people's pain at all. Everyone has experienced some type of trauma in some shape or form. But the way I see it, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it, is that at some point, you are responsible for your life. When you're a child, um no matter what you do, you're under your parents' roof. You don't have control over everything, right? You don't have control over everything. You may try, but they're still gonna decide. Why? Because you're a child. Okay. But when you're an adult, there comes a point where whatever happens in your life, it does not mean it's gonna be easy. It does not mean ABC, but at some point you have the choice to take responsibility for your own life. So someone else cannot feel responsible for what you decide to be today, right? And I'm a parent myself, so I'm always thinking about these things myself. But my son's life is his own, right? I'll try my best to give him everything I can, but it's still his own life, and ultimately, I prepare him to take ownership of making the choices for him. Or even when things happen and he tends to point fingers, I don't let him point fingers. At something else. I'm like, own. I rather that you own that you did something bad than you told me a lie. You know, own up to what you did. It'll be much better than if you lie to me and I know you lied to me. So that's really the lesson in the end. So evolution, everything is in constant evolution. We are, the world is, society is, the business world is. Hey, AI has come into the picture. I have coworkers. I know people, Charlie, and I'm sure you do, and most of us do. Some people that it's not that they don't want to get acquainted with technology, it's that they don't like it. They have a blockage with it, so they say, no, that's not how I operate. Well, my advice to them is, hey, get with the times, because fairly quickly it will be a problem with you if you don't at least understand these tools. You will be expendable very quickly, you know.
Yeah.
So that's just what it is. You have to adapt. You have to evolve. Okay, but I also believe that in that evolution, there are laws. There are laws that are always present and that are always true. Okay, that are always true in approach any situation, in the process of evolving, in the process of learning. As you said, okay, as you said, there are laws that are always true, and it's important to get acquainted with these laws, learn these laws, and oftentimes we will get bits and pieces of them. But just by getting bits and pieces and or incorporating that, it already makes a big difference. And as you build momentum, it's like a snowball that starts on top of the mountain. By the bottom, it's big, right? It's a lot faster. It's bigger. That's what happens as you build momentum and incorporating these concepts. You start to see and understand new concepts and new things. Okay, so just that's the thing. Also, Alvin has the four C's, right? The four
Mhm.
C's.
Yep.
Um, Another great word I believe that is taken for granted very often is patience. You said it, nothing happens in a day, okay? In a day. So by respecting the process, you put yourself in a position to become who you need to be, and you put yourself in a position to really get as close as possible to personal mastery is understanding every parts and knowing how to use them. You know, it doesn't happen in one day. But if I go on one call, Charlie, on one call 3 years ago, and I think, oh, I learned it all. You know, I'm good. I'm good. I'm done. Well, that's not respecting the process. Showing up here is part of the process. Simple as that. Okay, it's committing to something and doing it consistently. That's part of the process, right? Having the courage to take the right action when you know it is the right action. You know, that's also part of the process. So these different parts like that, learn them, understanding, and really don't cut corners. Ultimately, take the time that it needs. Work as long as you need to work, and that's as simple as that, really. But understanding the process. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
Awesome. And you mentioned the four C's. And so, for any listeners that haven't heard Alvin's four C's before, you got clarity, right? You got commitment, you got courage, and then you got consistency. And so, those four things need to exist. And then you get clear on what it is you want to achieve, you need to commit to it. Then you need to have the courage, right, to go through those obstacles, right, to feel uncomfortable and to take those actions needed. And then you need to be consistent in that. And through that process, you're going to achieve the next level in your personal mastery and beyond. So it's such a great discussion. And there's so many aspects to this. And you mentioned laws. And, in my mind, I think you're talking about principles, right? These principles. And again, principles are too important to be new. Okay. And so principles are something that as human beings, we don't create, we discover. Principles are laws, right? Think about the astrophysics, um, the laws of the universe, speed of light, all these different things that happen in physics. There are laws so that we can say, "Hey, we're gonna land this rover on Mars." Well, we can calculate and be very specific about landing a craft on that planet and deploying a piece of equipment that can now is on the planet, is on Mars as we speak, and sends back information, all those things. But we're able to get it there because we apply the principles that already exist. So it's so important to, understand these principles and then apply them to the best outcome. And when I think about principles, for me and what I do, I think about human behavior and how you treat people and how much that really matters. And so then when I'm conducting my work, I'm not guessing, right? I'm not guessing on how this person will react to the way I speak to them or how this person will respond to the way I treat them. I'm I'm basing my actions on principles that I know produce the best interactions with other human beings. So the beauty about understanding those principles is they're gonna work for you, right? They're always gonna work for you, but they can't work for you if you don't understand them. And so part of personal mastery is finding out those principles that apply to you, your specific situation, and then using them. For instance, you want to lose weight. A lot of people want to lose weight, especially in the United States, and specifically not just weight. They want to lose body fat. Well, we know that if you want to lose a pound of body fat, the principle is there are 3,500 calories in a pound, right? And so if you want to lose a pound a week, you need to create a 3,500 calorie deficit in your week. Now you can do that through diet, that you're going to eat 3,500 calories below what your maintenance level is for your body, and you'll lose a pound, or you might get half of that with your diet, and the other half you're going to burn up the excess with exercise combination. So, but again, you're applying that principle to your situation to achieve an outcome. And the math's the math on that, right? And so if I create that 3,500 calorie deficit, when I step on the scale a week later, I'll see the difference. So that's the magnificence of principles. With that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, principles, sir. And the thing with that also with principles is the process of becoming a master ultimately is for first accepting to be a novice, also. Okay, first accepting to be a novice, and without getting all religious, for believers out there, if you look at Jesus, before he was king, he first was a servant. Okay, he first became a servant. It's the same concept. As Charlie said, you have a physical goal. There's a process, there are principles that you need to follow. But if you never worked out, if you never did that, well, you're a novice. Okay, you gotta learn. You gotta have someone teach you how to do every single exercise. And you know what's even better about this that we forget to say is that even when you get really good about it, okay, even when you get really good, just try to stop for a month. Okay, just try to stop for a month, and you'll see very quickly that you're not so advanced anymore. You're way back to that same process. And even like in football, when we prepared for a season, okay, there was something called periodization. All right, periodization: off season, preseason, in season, postseason. Well, there's a process for every single parts of the year that restarts. No matter how elite you are, no matter how advanced you are, hey, off season, we go back to the basics. Okay, we go back to the basics. And a few years back, when I coached high level athletes, okay, my brother played professionally. I coached a lot of pro guys a few years back. And what always amazed me is that when I had these guys in the gym, a lot of them didn't have better technique than the little kids that I was teaching. They actually built up bad habits over time. They were just very strong, very fast, but still had bad technique. So oftentimes for them, it was about learning how to do it the right way so they could prolong their careers and be more efficient. That's really all there was to it. It wasn't about, okay, let's get you a little stronger, be stronger and all this. It's no. Let's get you to move the right way and be as efficient as you can with your body. So we had to unlearn and relearn, even. That's really what it was. So the basics are so important. You need to learn how to walk before you can run, right? You need to learn how to walk before you can run. So that's definitely something I'll be thinking about, when it comes to principles. And you said it, they are too old to have been created. They to be recreated right now. They've been here forever. And when you look at anything that's built on a strong foundation, you'll see that there are strong principles attached to it. We talked about humility. That's a powerful principle. Okay. And humility doesn't mean lacking confidence. Okay. It doesn't mean lacking confidence. I believe it's how you approach learning something new and putting in yourself in a position where you don't know. And whatever comes with that, it's a different perspective. Some people hate being in a position where they don't know and they don't look like the smartest guy. Some other people seek that. They seek that. That means, man, they're growing. That's actually what they seek. It's it's a good pain to experience. It's not a bad pain to experience. And we could go on and on about this conversation, but that leads me to, what's your perspective in the end? What's your perspective and what you're ultimately trying to accomplish? Alvin's first C is clarity. Okay, do you have clarity? Okay. Do you have clarity on what it is that you're really trying to accomplish? Because if you do, when you get to the limit of your expertise and what you know, well, you do what needs to be done at that point. You don't try to cover up, you open. You open. So clarity, that's why it's the first C. Right? That's why it's the first C. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, as we wrap up this segment, one of the things that came to mind during your discourse was this: it's so important that we fall in love with the process of learning. I think part of personal mastery is falling in love with learning. When you fall in love with learning, you're not going to be resistant when someone approaches you and offers to teach you something, right? You're going to embrace it. And I know I used to, have all these thoughts and ideas and argue a point, and now, much wiser, of course, that when someone points out either, hey, I was wrong about something, or gives me a deeper or better, greater understanding of a subject, man, I'm grateful for that, because I want to know the truth. I want to have the best information to work with. And so we should never underestimate another person's ability to teach us, right? And so anytime I'm around other human beings, if I'm on an airplane or in an airport or standing in line at a grocery store, you look around, there's people all around you that know things you don't know. And one of our jobs as a learner is to find out what it is they know, right? Chat them up, get in conversation. And I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. When I lived in Lincoln, Nebraska. I went to University of Nebraska in undergrad, and then I ended up living there for like 13 years. And I was going to this karate dojo, and had a busy job, and so Monday through Friday wasn't an option but I found a teacher that taught 2 classes on Saturday and 2 classes on Sunday. So I went to 4 classes on the weekends. And I remember we were doing this knife defense. and we had a rubber, a rubber knife. It looked like a knife, but it was rubber, so that way you couldn't get injured. And the whole concept was, you think about catching a baseball, but you're catching or a football, but you're catching a person's wrist, and you're keeping your body out of harm's way and catching a wrist, catching a wrist. And so one of the black belts in the class he was the best. He's really good at it. No one could get him. No one could get him. And so I remember the next weekend, his name was John. I was like, John, I just want to talk to you a little bit about it because you're so great, at that knife defense. He says, "Man, I thought I was till I got home." And
Hmm.
I was like, really? What do you mean? He said, yeah, I got my 10-year-old son. And I was excited to tell him about it. And so I gave him the knife and told him, try to stab me with it. So he lunged. He said, I caught his wrist, Charlie, but then all he did is he just dropped the knife into his other hand. He stabbed me with it. He said, so I still have a lot to learn on knife defense. My 10-year-old, he stabbed me right away. He first tried. And it was funny because none of us as adults we didn't think about that. But he just dropped it
Yeah,
and stabbed me. Yeah.
yeah.
It was so funny. But we always have room to learn. And when we approach it that way with humility, it just opens ourselves up to so many possibilities. And again, Alvin says this all the time. He's not with us today, but he says this all the time. One person
Hmm.
can change your life. We're all, everybody that's listening to this, there's one person. You're one person. You're always, at any time in your life, you're always one person away, one relationship away from changing your life, because that person will give you a wisdom, a knowledge, connect you with someone, whatever it is, that one person, and then your life is completely changed for the better.
Hmm.
And so that's so encouraging to know that each day we wake up, today might be the day that I meet that person or someone within my circle, if I'm open to it, shares knowledge with me that will improve and change my life for the better. So with that,
Wow.
I'll pass the mic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And we all have these moments too, where I remember watching a YouTube video at some point of a guy having a knife and trying to put it in between his fingers. And a couple months back, I was just playing around with my son, and I told him, "Hey, watch, I'm gonna karate chop this apple." And he told me, "It's not a good idea, Dad. Like, don't do it." And I did it, so behold, I had a knife go like go right into my finger. I felt so stupid, but hey, he told me. But yeah, he learned something that day. I learned something that day too. Calm down, calm down. So
Yes.
I won't do it again. But oh man, that's so funny. That's so true. I want to share a wisdom to you guys from Zig Ziglar. Because Charlie talked about him. So let's shout him out today. He said, if you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. Very important thing to remind ourselves is um, we all have that power. We all have that power where we tend to uh, seek permission to be the best version of ourselves. For what? You don't need you don't need no one's permission but your own. If you are continually in the process of seeking and learning, you acquire something very special, which is wisdom. Okay, which is wisdom. And you become something and someone very special that cannot be stopped. Cannot be stopped. Good, bad, you will find a way. I guarantee you this, and it might not look exactly like you envision at first, but something beautiful and amazing will happen in your lives and the lives of others around you. This is the power that you have, that we all have within us. When we bring that spirit forward. So that's something very interesting to remind ourselves, because a lot of people really think as though they're powerless. When, as we always say, also, you're powerful beyond measure. Really are. You gotta give yourself permission. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Awesome. Well, hey, this has been a great discussion. I appreciate you being on here this morning and sharing your wisdom with me, myself, and everyone that's listening. So, always awesome. And I hope that this opened up some eyes out there or provided, maybe a path that people can take to better understand themselves and along their journey to personal mastery. So we always end these the same way. Want to wish everyone out there a lot of peace.
Oh, we forgot the word. We forgot
Oh,
the
the
word.
word. Yeah, that's
The
right. The
word, the word, the
word.
word.
The
Yeah.
word. Man, do you have one?
I have to go with humility today, man. That's especially with Christmas time coming along. I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful for the listeners. I'm grateful for you, for Brandon, for Alvin, for everything that's going on in my life. And it doesn't make me feel lucky. It just reminds me to be that much more humble. You know, that much more humble, because these are all these things are gifts. Are gifts. And yeah, man, I'm just so humility has to be the word for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with love. And and again, time of year, holidays, there's a lot of families getting together, which is awesome. So important. And I talked about loving the process of learning, right? Falling in love with that. And Steve Jobs said, it's in order to do great work, he said, you have to love what you do. He said,
Yeah,
because otherwise it's too hard and you'll quit, right? It's too hard. But when you love it, those difficult times, those obstacles, you see them as more of an inconvenience, a delay, but it doesn't dissuade you from your journey. And I think the same thing with the people in our lives, we got to love them. Are they perfect? They're
no,
not, and neither are we. But when we have those difficult times, we see them as inconveniences, and we can brush that off and just focus on the person that we do love, and for all the reasons that we love them. So,
love it.
yeah.
You
All
gotta
right.
love
So
it.
now, now, we always like to leave people with peace,
Peace,
a lot of love,
love,
and plenty of
and
soul.
soul.